The massive alien vessel hung silently against the starlit backdrop of Earth's orbital space. Its metallic hull gleamed with an iridescent blue-green sheen, casting long shadows across the diplomatic monitoring stations. Inside the Earth's Space Command Center, Captain Kim Tae-hyung watched the approaching ship with a mixture of calculated calm and barely concealed curiosity. Dr. Yeon Ji-eun stood beside him, her fingers dancing across holographic displays that flickered with complex linguistic algorithms. She had spent years preparing for this moment, a potential first contact scenario that most of her colleagues believed would never happen. The Zortak ship transmitted its first communication burst. Most human communication experts would have heard nothing more than a series of strange clicks, harmonic tones, and seemingly random sound patterns. But Ji-eun and her team were different. They had been studying these alien communication signals for nearly a decade, meticulously breaking down every subtle nuance. Kralax, the lead Zortak diplomat, believed humans were primitive. His species had been observing Earth for years, intercepting radio signals, television broadcasts, and digital communications. Yet, they fundamentally misunderstood human complexity. To Kralax, humans were nothing more than a backward species, barely capable of understanding their own technological limitations. "Prepare standard diplomatic greeting protocol," Captain Kim announced, his voice steady. Ji-eun smiled. She knew exactly what was about to happen. The alien communication continued, filled with what Kralax considered untranslatable linguistic insults. Each sound was designed to demonstrate superiority, to establish a hierarchical communication structure that would force humans into a subservient position. What Kralax didn't realize was that his every word was being perfectly decoded, analyzed, and understood. Inside the monitoring station, a team of linguists worked silently. Specialized computers translated not just words, but cultural contexts, emotional undertones, and complex grammatical structures. They were creating a comprehensive understanding of the alien language that went far beyond simple translation. Captain Kim noticed Ji-eun's subtle smile. "They have no idea we understand them," he whispered. "Not a single word escapes our comprehension," she responded softly. The alien vessel continued its approach, broadcasting what it believed were incomprehensible communication patterns, complex harmonics mixed with staccato sounds that would confuse most human listeners. But to Ji-eun's team, it was as clear as any human language. Kralax was preparing what he thought was a devastating linguistic attack. In his mind, these humans would be completely bewildered by the intricate communication patterns of his advanced species. He imagined them struggling, confused, unable to comprehend the sophisticated linguistic structure. Little did he know that Dr. Yeon Ji-eun had spent her entire career preparing for this exact moment. Her team had developed translation algorithms so advanced that they could not just translate language, but understand the deepest cultural and emotional context behind every communication. The space between the alien vessel and Earth's orbital stations continued to shrink. Tension built in the monitoring center. Each team member knew they were witnessing a historic moment, the first true potential for understanding between two completely different intelligent species. Kralax continued transmitting, believing in the absolute superiority of his communication strategy. His species had encountered numerous developing civilizations before, always establishing immediate dominance through linguistic complexity. But humans were different. Humans were unexpected. As the alien ship drew closer, the true complexity of the situation began to unfold. What seemed like a simple first contact scenario was about to become something far more intricate, far more nuanced than anyone could have predicted. Dr. Yeon Ji-eun watched the approaching vessel, her eyes reflecting a combination of scientific curiosity and quiet anticipation. She knew that in just a few moments everything was about to change. The first true communication between humans and the Zortak was about to begin, and it would be nothing like anyone expected. The research facility hummed with quiet intensity. Computers lined the walls, their screens flickering with complex patterns of sound waves, linguistic algorithms, and alien communication data. Dr. Yeon Ji-eun sat at the center of this technological web, her fingers moving swiftly across holographic interfaces. For 10 years, her team had been collecting every possible signal from potential alien communications. What started as a small government-funded research project had become humanity's most critical linguistic investigation. Each team member understood the immense responsibility they carried. Park Hye-rin, the youngest member of the research team, brought Ji-eun another cup of coffee. The senior linguist barely noticed, her eyes locked on a series of complex sound patterns that most would consider nothing more than random noise. "We're close," Ji-eun muttered, more to herself than to anyone else. The breakthrough had come unexpectedly. Most linguistic experts believed alien communication would be fundamentally different, so alien that human understanding would be impossible. But Ji-eun's team had discovered something remarkable. Language, regardless of its origin, followed specific mathematical and logical patterns. They had developed an artificial intelligence system nicknamed Luna, Linguistic Universal Neural Analyzer. This wasn't just a translation tool. Luna could break down communication patterns at a molecular level, understanding not just words, but the intricate cultural and emotional contexts behind those words. Each alien communication signal was like a complex puzzle. Most researchers would see meaningless noise. Ji-eun saw a language waiting to be understood. The team worked in shifts, analyzing thousands of hours of intercepted alien communications. They had collected signals from multiple, potential alien sources, building a comprehensive database of possible extraterrestrial languages. But the Zortok signals were different. They were more complex, more nuanced than anything they had seen before. Ji-eun remembered the day they first discovered the pattern. It was a late night, almost 3 years ago. Most of the team had gone home. She was working alone, her eyes burning from hours of continuous research. Suddenly, a pattern emerged, a subtle rhythm in the communication that suggested more than random noise. "It's a language," she had whispered to herself, "a complete, structured language." The next months were a blur of research, coding, and continuous analysis. Luna became more than a tool. It became a bridge between human understanding and potential alien communication. Park Hye-rin watched her mentor with admiration. Ji-eun wasn't just a linguist, she was a pioneer, someone willing to challenge every existing concept of communication and language. The current Zortok signals were particularly interesting. They contained multiple layers of communication, some obvious, some hidden so deeply that only the most advanced analysis could reveal them. Luna was working overtime, breaking down each sound wave, each harmonic variation. "We're not just translating," Ji-eun often told her team. "We're understanding." The research facility was located in a nondescript building outside Seoul. From the outside, it looked like any other government research center. But inside, something extraordinary was happening. Humanity was preparing for its first true alien communication. Each team member understood the stakes. This wasn't just about understanding an alien language. This was about proving humanity's intellectual capacity. This was about showing that humans were more than just another developing species in the universe. Ji-eun's computer systems began to display a complete breakdown of the latest Zortok communication signals. Colors shifted, patterns emerged. What seemed like random noise was now a clear, structured language. "We're ready," she said quietly. Park Hye-rin looked up. "Are we really going to do this?" Ji-eun's smile was both confident and slightly mischievous. "We're going to do more than just communicate. We're going to surprise them." The research continued. Outside, the world remained unaware of the linguistic revolution happening within these walls. Humanity was about to show the universe that communication was about more than just words. It was about understanding. And Dr. Yeon Ji-eun was ready to prove that. The diplomatic chamber was silent, cold, and tense. Massive windows revealed the endless blackness of space, a backdrop to the most critical meeting in human history. The Zortok delegation entered first, their tall, elongated bodies moving with practiced superiority. Krelax, the lead diplomat, believed this would be another simple encounter. His species had dealt with countless developing civilizations before. Humans would be no different. Primitive, confused, easily manipulated. Park Hee-rin stood at the center of the human delegation. To the aliens, she appeared small, almost insignificant. Her dark eyes betrayed no emotion, her posture calm and calculated. Kralax began his communication. The sounds were complex, a series of clicks, harmonic tones, and intricate sound patterns that would normally be incomprehensible to human ears. He launched into what he believed was an untranslatable series of linguistic attacks designed to establish absolute dominance. What happened next would change everything. Park Hee-rin stepped forward. When she spoke, she used perfect Zortak dialect. Not just translated words, but the exact linguistic structure, complete with cultural nuances and emotional undertones that even most Zortak would struggle to reproduce. "Your communication suggests a profound misunderstanding of our species," she began, her voice matching the exact harmonic patterns of Zortak speech. The room froze. Kralax stopped mid-sentence. His communication device flickered, then went silent. The other Zortak diplomats looked at each other in complete shock. She continued, breaking down each of his previous communication signals. Not just translating, but explaining the cultural context, the emotional subtext, the hidden meanings that even the Zortak themselves might not fully understand. It was a linguistic deconstruction so precise, so complete, that it went beyond simple translation. Park Hee-rin was revealing the entire communication strategy of the Zortak, layer by layer. "Your attempt to establish dominance," she explained, "reveals more about your cultural insecurities than any perceived superiority." Each word was a surgical strike. She wasn't just speaking their language, she was dismantling their entire communication philosophy. The Zortak diplomats looked defeated. Kralax's communication device hung limply in his hand. He had entered the room expecting to demonstrate alien superiority. Now he was being completely dismantled by a human less than half his size. Dr. Yeon Ji-eun watched from the side, a subtle smile playing on her lips. Years of research had prepared them for this moment. This wasn't just a diplomatic meeting. This was a demonstration of human intellectual capability. Park Hee-rin wasn't finished. She began explaining the intricate linguistic research that had made this moment possible. She described how humans had studied their language, understood their communication patterns, decoded their most complex linguistic structures. The Zortak delegation realized they had dramatically underestimated humanity. Captain Kim Tae-hyung stood silently, representing Earth's Space Command. His presence was a quiet reminder of human potential, diplomatic yet powerful. Park Hee-rin's final statement was devastating in its simplicity. "We are not just listening," she said in perfect Zortak dialect. "We are understanding." The diplomatic chamber remained silent. The Zortak diplomats looked shell-shocked. They had come expecting to establish dominance. Instead, they had been completely dismantled. Kralax finally spoke, his voice now humble. "How?" he asked simply. Park Hee-rin's response was equally simple. "We listened, we learned, we understood." In that moment, everything changed. The relationship between humans and the Zortak would never be the same. What started as a potential conflict had become a moment of profound mutual respect. Linguistics had become diplomacy. Understanding had become power. The stars outside the diplomatic chamber continued to shine, silent witnesses to a moment that would reshape humanity's place in the universe. The silence was deafening. Kralax stood motionless, his alien form suddenly looking less imposing, more vulnerable. The diplomatic room, moments ago charged with tension, now felt like a space of profound transformation. Dr. Yeon Ji-eun stepped forward, her movements calm and deliberate. She understood this moment was about more than language. This was about demonstrating humanity's true intellectual depth. "You believed we were primitive," she said in perfect Zortak dialect. "But understanding is our greatest strength." Kralax's communication device flickered. The complex neural translators in his system were struggling to process what had just happened. A human, a species they had considered barely advanced, had completely dismantled their most sophisticated communication strategy. Park Hye-rin began explaining the layers of human linguistic research. She described how they had studied not just the sounds but the cultural contexts, the emotional undertones, the mathematical patterns that existed beneath the surface of communication. The Zortak delegation realized they had made a fundamental mistake. Humans were not just another developing species to be categorized and controlled. They were something entirely different. Captain Kim Tae-hyung watched silently. His presence was a quiet reminder of human potential: diplomatic, intelligent, measured. Krelax's junior diplomats began reviewing their communication logs. Each signal, each sound pattern they had transmitted was now being seen in a completely new light. What they thought was a display of superiority was now revealed as a demonstration of their own cultural limitations. "We have studied your communications for decades," Dr. Ji-eun explained. "Every signal, every transmission. We didn't just listen, we understood." The revelation was devastating to the Zortak's perception of themselves. They had always believed in their intellectual superiority. Now, that belief was crumbling. One of the junior Zortak diplomats spoke, his voice trembling slightly. "How is this possible?" Park Hye-rin's response was simple. "Because we are curious, because we learn, because understanding is our greatest technology." The room temperature seemed to change. What started as a confrontation was becoming something else, a moment of mutual recognition. Krelax's communication patterns shifted, no longer aggressive, now almost apologetic. He was experiencing something rare for his species: genuine humility. Dr. Ji-eun explained how human linguistic research worked, how they approached communication not as a weapon, but as a bridge, how every language, every communication pattern, was an opportunity to understand, to connect. The Zortak delegation began to see humans differently, not as a species to be controlled, but as potential partners, intellectual equals. "We misjudged you," Krelax finally admitted. The words were difficult for his species. Admitting a mistake was not part of their traditional communication protocol. Captain Kim stepped forward. "Understanding begins with listening," he said simply. The diplomatic room, moments ago charged with potential conflict, now felt like a space of possibility. Humanity had not just defended itself. It had demonstrated something far more powerful: the ability to transform a potential confrontation into an opportunity for mutual understanding. Park Hye-rin's linguistic deconstruction had done more than just translate words. It had revealed the profound intellectual capacity of the human species. The Zortak delegation would return to their homeworld with a completely different understanding of humanity. No longer would humans be seen as a species to be controlled or dismissed. Dr. Yeon Ji-eun looked at Krelax. Her eyes reflected not triumph but understanding. This was not about winning. This was about connecting. "We are different," she said. "But difference does not mean conflict." The stars outside continued to shine, silent witnesses to a moment that would reshape how two species would interact forever. Communication had become diplomacy. Understanding had become the most powerful technology in the universe, and humanity had just proven its place among the stars. The final diplomatic meeting was unlike anything Earth had ever witnessed. The massive conference hall, designed to host international discussions, now became the stage for humanity's most significant extraterrestrial negotiation. Dr. Yeon Ji-eun sat at the center of the human delegation. Her presence was calm, almost serene. Behind her, rows of linguists, scientists, and diplomatic experts waited quietly. Krelax entered the room, his previous arrogance completely transformed. The Zortak delegation moved differently now, less like conquerors, more like students. "We were wrong," Krelax stated directly. The words were simple but carried immense weight. The human representatives listened. Captain Kim Tae-hyung's eyes reflected a combination of diplomatic precision and cautious hope. Park Hye-rin, the linguistic expert who had dismantled their initial communication, sat quietly, her role now complete. Representatives from multiple global governments watched carefully. This wasn't just a diplomatic meeting. This was a moment that would reshape humanity's understanding of its place in the universe. Krelax presented a formal communication protocol. It wasn't a surrender. It was a request for genuine dialogue. The Zortak were proposing something unprecedented, a comprehensive cultural exchange program. "We want to understand," he said simply. Dr. Ji-Eun's response was measured. Understanding requires mutual respect. The proposed protocol included multiple fascinating elements: scientific exchanges, linguistic research collaborations, cultural, communication studies. The Zortak were offering complete transparency, something completely contrary to their previous interaction strategies. Global leaders listened carefully. Years of preparing for potential alien contact had not prepared them for this scenario. A peaceful, intellectual resolution. Park Hye-rin began explaining the intricate details of the proposed communication framework. Her expertise would be critical. In developing these new diplomatic relationships, the Zortak were not just apologizing. They were fundamentally redesigning their approach to encountering new civilizations. Humanity had changed their entire philosophical understanding of first contact. Captain Kim reviewed the technical specifications. The proposed communication protocols were revolutionary. They would allow for unprecedented levels of cross-species. Understanding Dr. Ji-Eun's team had become the unexpected heroes. Their linguistic research had transformed a potential conflict into a diplomatic breakthrough. "We propose joint research stations," Krelax explained. "Locations where our species can study, learn, and grow together." The proposal was comprehensive. Scientific exchanges, cultural studies, linguistic research centers would be established in neutral spaces. Both humans and Zortak would contribute equally. Global leaders recognized the magnitude of this moment. This was more than a diplomatic agreement. This was humanity's first true step into a larger universal community. Park Hye-rin's linguistic expertise had become the bridge between two completely different species. Her work would be studied for generations. The final document was signed. Not with traditional signatures, but with complex linguistic confirmations that represented both human and Zortak communication methods. Dr. Yeon Ji-eun looked at Krelax. No words were needed. Their mutual understanding transcended traditional communication. Outside the conference hall, news teams waited. The world would soon know that everything had changed. Humanity had not conquered. Humanity had communicated. The diplomatic resolution represented more than a treaty. It was a testament to human potential. Intelligence, curiosity, and the willingness to understand had become humanity's most powerful diplomatic tool. As the meeting concluded, something fundamental had shifted. The universe seemed a little smaller, a little more connected, and it had. All started with a simple willingness to listen. The stars outside continued to shine, silent witnesses to a moment that would reshape human history forever.